Hello students, my name is Prerna and I'm your EVS teacher. And today from your EVS book Enviro, we are going to be reading chapter number 18. Tell me, have you ever tried rock climbing or maybe underwater diving, scuba diving, any of the adventure sports? Maybe a few of you have, but if you haven't, after reading this chapter, you might want to try a few. So, from Unit 6 Travel, let us start reading chapter number 18. And the name of the chapter is The Spirit of Adventure. Right? So, let's start reading this chapter. What adventure are we talking about? Alright. So, let us have a look at these adventure sports. Alright. Now, the first one that we are talking about, first we're going to talk about adventure in general. An adventure is an activity which involves risk, danger, and uncertain experiences. A person who undertakes an adventure is called an adventurer. These people have true determination and the spirit of adventure. They get immense pleasure on successfully completing their mission. But you need to ensure that you act a little wise and not in a manner that you harm yourself. Okay? Nowadays, adventure sports and tourism have become very popular. People participate in these activities for the sake of thrill and excitement. Some famous adventurous activities like mountaineering, skiing, paragliding, river rafting, scuba diving, hot air ballooning, bungee jumping, etc. So these are a few adventure activities, and one of the most challenging adventure sports is mountaineering. So you can see these different adventure sports: scuba diving, bungee jumping, paragliding. Then you have river rafting, rock climbing, hot air ballooning. All right. So now first let us talk about mountaineering. Mountain climbing is better known as mountaineering. India has many famous mountain ranges and peaks spread across the length and breadth of our country. There are mountains in the eastern and western Ghats in peninsular India, the Aravallis and the Vindhyachal in central India, and the magnificent Himalayas in the north and the east. Mountain climbers from all over the world come to India to climb these various peaks. It is important to understand mountains before climbing them. So they have some unique features. What is this? As you go higher, the air pressure reduces. That is, you start feeling lack of oxygen. So as you will go higher, you will find breathing difficulty and you will feel that you're getting tired very easily. That is why you might have seen a lot of mountaineers, they also carry oxygen cylinders with them. All right. And as you go higher, it also starts becoming colder. So, of course, like the northern part of India is quite cold, right? But the southern part is not, because this is how nature is, that as you go higher, you will start feeling colder. And generally, beyond 1200 feet, areas are snow covered in summers also. And temperature, sometimes it goes below 0 degree, sometimes minus degree temperature as well. In snowbound areas, you may not get water. Snow has to be heated and melted into water. This fuel has to be carried out. So thus fuel has to be carried out to melt snow, heat food and keep warm. Training. How does this training happens? These days, certain organizations have facilities to train people to climb lower peaks over a short period of time. Such climbs give us an idea of mountaineering. If we wish to further pursue this hobby, then we need to undertake special training. So it's not like someday you decide that, oh, let me pick up my bag and climb the Mount Everest. No, there's a lot of training, a lot of rigorous training that happens before someone goes for mountaineering. Training for high altitude climbing requires strength and stamina. To build up strength and stamina, mountaineers need constant training and practice. That is continuous training and practice. Since the risks are high and the weather is unpredictable, proper planning and preparation is very important. In India, special training is offered at two places. First is Nehru Institute of Mountaineering at Utkarshi in Garhwal Hills and the Himalayan Mountaineering Institute in Darjeeling. These institutes they train mountaineers to acquire so that they can acquire various mountaineering skills. Now we talk about great mountaineers, people who have who earned a lot of fame by climbing some uh, like known peaks. First was Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. They are both famous mountaineers. They were first people to climb Mount Everest. The first two people to climb Mount Everest, Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. So see, this chapter is actually enhancing your general knowledge as well. And what is Mount Everest? It is the highest peak in the world. Not only did they climb the peak successfully, but they also made it possible for hundreds of other mountaineers to follow their footsteps. They are examples of true determination and spirit of adventure. Then we have Bachendri Pal. She was the first Indian woman who climbed the Mount Everest. And her story is of great determination. Because she always wanted to do things that girls were discouraged from. So in order to prove that yes, even girls are nowhere behind, girls have all the skills to accomplish any task, she decided to climb the Mount Everest. And on 23rd May 1984, Bachendri climbed up to the summit of Mount Everest along with the Sherpa chief and Dorje. They started from the south col at sunrise, crossing huge ice cliffs and vast glacier fields. And they were able to do it. And the other two members who climbed up after them were Lato and Pulzor. Everyone praised Bachendri for completing the South Col climb and returning in only 10 hours and 40 minutes, including the halt at the top of Mount Everest. And she was awarded the Padam Shri as well as the Arjuna Award for this great achievement by the Indian government. So this is about mountains. Now we talk about space, something that interests us a lot. When we look at the sky, we look at the stars, we look at the sun, and we wonder what exactly is there. So there are some people who went to the outer space to find out that what exactly is this made up of. The sky and heavenly bodies have always made us very curious to know about it. The science and study of all celestial bodies like stars and space and planets and galaxies is called as astronomy. And the person who travels into space is called as an astronaut. The machine which can be carried by human spacecraft, or it is called a spacecraft or spaceship. So person who goes in the outer space is an astronaut, and how they travel in a spacecraft or in a spaceship. People have seen different man-made objects such as Bhaskar, Rohini, Apple, INSAT IA, and then INSAT IB into space. So these all have been sent in the outer space. Satellites and other space probes revolve around the Earth. Unnamed spacecraft are controlled by scientists in space. Unmanned spacecrafts are controlled by scientists in space stations. By unmanned means that there's no person who goes along with a satellite. So these satellites are just sent into the space, and then the scientists study through them. So satellite is basically like a camera, if I have to explain it in a very simple way, it's like a camera which is sent in the outer space to know what exactly is happening there. And what is the definition? It is an object which revolves around a planet in an orbit. The moon is the only natural satellite of our home planet of the Earth. Some of the spaceships or spacecrafts revolves around the Earth, and they are called as artificial or man-made satellites. Natural satellites can be seen clearly in the night sky because they reflect sunlight. First, unmanned spaceship or satellite that launched from the Earth was Sputnik. It was sent in space by Russia on October 4, 1957, and this was the beginning of space age. And when did India launch its first satellite? In 1975, and it was named after a very famous mathematician, Aryabhatta. And India is one of the few nations which has technology to send satellites into space. The spacecraft are sent in space due to the following reasons. Cameras of weather satellites photographs are, like I told you, the photographs are taken through satellites. Cameras of weather satellite photograph the Earth and its atmosphere, including clouds. So they send back these photographs to weather study centers on the Earth. The weather bulletin is telecast on Indian TV every day on the basis of information received from INSAT IP, which is a satellite. Weather bulletin predicts the weather and gives us early warnings of rainstorm and cyclone. So sometimes when we get this news of like they said that tsunami was also, the warning was given for cyclone which occurred in the northeastern part of our country of lately. So how do people come to know about it? How do the weather people who study weather, how do they come to know about it? Through the pictures which are sent from the weather satellites. Then you have communication satellite that send live telecast of the events on TV to distant places. Events may be political, cultural, and it also communicates dance, drama, and films for recreation to be seen anywhere in the globe. Like sometimes when you're watching television, you get a message now that due to bad weather, you are not able to view this channel. How do you get that? Because that network is connected to the satellite. So it could be very cloudy, because of which now the program that we want to see cannot be telecasted. And when the sky is absolutely clear, we are able to watch it. So these are communication satellites. Astronomers used unmanned spacecraft to take detailed observations and measurement of our solar systems and the stars. Unmanned spacecrafts or space probes have traveled as far as the planets of Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. The main difficulty is going into space is the pull of Earth's gravity. Secondly, when the spacecraft is in the outer space, beyond the pull of Earth's gravity, astronauts float inside the spacecraft in a state of weightlessness because there is no gravity there. There is no force of gravity to pull and hold them down on the floor of the spacecraft. And the food and water is packed in special tubes and squeezed directly into their mouth, or it will float away from them. And they also need to carry oxygen cylinders. Now, how does this training happen? So, you have famous institutes like National Aeronautics and Space Administration, which is NASA in the US, and Indian Space Research Organization, that is ISRO, in India, of course. They develop spacecraft for different purposes. So, like we spoke about great mountaineers like Bachendri Pal, Edmund Hillary, and now we're going to talk about great astronauts. First is Neil Armstrong. Why? Because he was the first person to step on moon. Neil Armstrong, when he stepped on the moon from Apollo 11, that was the name of the spaceship. He said, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." And he was the first man to set foot on the moon. What does this mean? One step for man and one giant leap for mankind. It means that when one person does something which is very different or which is great, then it benefits the entire mankind. So your small step maybe can benefit so many other people. So when Neil Armstrong stepped on moon, so what did he do? He paved the way for a lot of scientific innovation, for a lot of scientific discoveries. The rocket and spacecraft together were 111 meters tall as 36-story building in Apollo 11. The spacecraft was built into three parts: command module, service module, and lunar module. And we can have a look at this. This is the diagram of the Apollo 11. The largest part was command module. It was the most important one. At the bottom of it were all engines, and in the middle room for the astronaut with windows from which they could watch the Earth, the moon and the stars. They kept their food and all the necessities there, and in the front was a door to lunar module. And there were 3 rockets with it to launch into space beyond the pull of gravity of the Earth. And every rocket, it contained fuel and oxygen to burn it. On July 16, 1969, the first stage rocket was fired and Apollo 11 went up. As the spacecraft gets away, the pull of the Earth's gravity became less and less. When the spacecraft reached near the moon, gravity of moon started pulling it. So imagine these were the problems they were facing. First, the spacecraft went around the moon 10 times. Then Aldrin and Armstrong, that is Neil Armstrong, they crawled into the lunar module. It was smaller and it contained 2 seats for them. Right? So this was the other astronaut with Neil Armstrong, that is, his name was Edwin Aldrin. It had 2 doors and 2 windows, and lunar module left the command module which continued to revolve around the moon. Armstrong let down the module on the moon and stepped it on July 21, 1969, and Aldrin followed him. And they took photographs, picked up the moon rocks and moon dust, and said, the moon is the color of Coca-Cola. Our Earth looked them as beautiful as blue lighted ball. All right. So much about Neil Armstrong. So Neil Armstrong accomplished so much. Let's have a look at other famous astronauts. Now we talk about Rakesh Sharma, who's the most famous Indian astronaut. But why? Because he was the first Indian astronaut to go into the outer space on 13th April 1984. And he was an Indian Air Force pilot, squadron leader Rakesh Sharma. He, along with 2 Russian astronauts, went into the spacecraft called Soyuz T-11. On being asked how India looked from outer space by the then Prime Minister, Mrs. Indira Gandhi. So there was a live telecast which was going on. So Mrs. Indira Gandhi could actually talk to squadron leader, to famous astronaut Rakesh Sharma, and she asked, how does India look from outer space? Kaisa lagta hai hamara Hindustan? This is what she asked. So what did he say? He said, Sare jahan se acha, Hindustan hamara. So, and what it means? It means that better than the whole world. And he was awarded the Ashok Chakra for his achievement. If you ever get a chance, do watch this video of Neil Armstrong also and Rakesh Sharma also. It's a beautiful video, and you will really, a few of you might, think about taking up the profession of an astronaut, and who knows, you might also become one and get to go into the outer space and see so many things. And of course, maybe you also become famous someday. The next famous astronaut that we talk about is Kalpana Chawla. She was the first Indian woman to travel to space, and she did this twice. She was an intelligent girl from the small town of Karnal in Haryana. She was selected for National Aeronautics and Space Administration, that is NASA, space program for astronauts in 1994. On 19 November 1997, she went up on her first space flight with crew STS-87 and took off from Cape Canaveral in Florida, USA. And she went up on the second flight in Space Shuttle Columbia on 16 January 2003 from Kennedy Space Center in USA. But this turned out to be a tragic event because the spacecraft, it actually caught fire, and it caught fire, and then everyone in the spacecraft died. There were no survivors. So all the astronauts, they died. And this young Indian-born astronaut was truly a global citizen. She inspired all young children to move forward and reach for the space. Then you have Sunita Williams. She's an American astronaut of Indian origin. She made a journey into space in the space shuttle Discovery. She was born on 19 September 1965 and did her schooling and college in America. So though she was from Indian origin, but she did all her studies in America. She logged over 2,770 flights hours in more than 30 different aircrafts, and she was selected by NASA in 1998. And of course, to be sent into space, and she holds the record of the longest space flight, that is 195 days for a female space traveler. Williams' route, that is Sunita Williams' route, on her father Deepak Pandya and side, they go back to Gujarat in India. So in India, she's from Gujarat, right? So see, so much to learn about space, so much to learn about mountains. Now what you can do is, as I told you, you can watch these videos maybe and get a better understanding. And like I said, you never know, you might want to make a career out of it. All right, thank you so much.